Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. Wuxia. Master Yi, the third-generation Confucian sage exposed Su Yan crossed through the Yang god and became Hong Yi, the undisputed ancestor of literature and Taoism, and the holy master of Confucianism. In addition, he is also Feng Yun and master. Until the fourth generation, he unexpectedly traveled to a world of martial arts. A literary and Taoist saint mixed in the world of martial arts. Su Yan smiled in his heart and immediately became a storyteller somewhere in the snow in Xianxia. The world's cultural fortune is one stone, Sir occupies one stone. Unexpectedly, on this day, Yishan praised Su Yan so much in front of Su Zhao's father and son, which immediately aroused curiosity in their hearts. They then asked themselves the question of, since ancient times, the imperial court has been constantly fighting and the people have been struggling. Su Yan said, I have dragon-slaying skills. Do you dare to learn them? At the beginning, teach Su Zhao's father and son, and even the world about dragon-slaying skills. At this moment, the golden list arrived and we will list the top 10 Confucian scholars. The second party luck, to open another Confucian and Taoist path for the world, ranking third on the gold list. In the third generation, Master Yi, the way of distance, broke through the world's hierarchy and ranked second. The first generation of Yang god, Hongyi, ascends to the other shore at the end of Confucianism and Taoism. May everyone in the world be like a dragon. Ranked first. At this point, the world shakes. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Beyond the Other Side, I Am the Supreme. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Beyond the Other Side, I Am the Supreme. Xianxia, dusk. Outside the city of Liangzhou, on the official road, a group of people, old and young, walked slowly. The two of them stretched their backs extremely long. Straight mother thief. The young man, dressed in rags and with a stubble on his mouth, spoke weakly to the old man with white hair beside him, holding a horse. Lao Huang, my highness has already asked Xiao Bai to inform us of our return. Why doesn't Su Xiao send someone to pick us up? I can't walk a step anymore, I have to take it slowly. Listening to the young man's complaints, the old groom grinned foolishly, revealing the sight of missing two front teeth. The general must be in trouble. Don't worry, let's walk step by step and we can always reach the royal mansion. As he spoke, old Huang extended his arm and pointed up, making a gesture. You comfort me, why not speak? Upon hearing this, Sun Yan couldn't help but roll his eyes. He should have known how difficult it was for old Huang to communicate. With a snort, Sun Yan said angrily. What else is more important than his son who hasn't returned home after taking him on a long-distance trip for 3 years? After my highness returns to his mansion, I will teach him a good lesson. Let the old man know who speaks the most at home. Regarding this, Lao Huang still just smiled foolishly and stopped talking. Feeling his hungry stomach, Sun Yan was imagining a beautiful life after returning home, with luxurious clothes and food, a high bed and soft pillows, and birds and swallows. Suddenly, there was a commotion around. I don't know how many people suddenly emerged, filling the street to the brim. Lao Huang, after leaving Xianxia for so many years, why has Liangzhou become so lively? The young man rubbed his eyes and asked incredulously. And these people, why are you chasing each other in the same direction? As if to answer Sun Yan's doubts, several anxious voices echoed one after another in the crowd. Brother Zhao, hurry up and take a seat for me. When you arrive, I'll give you 10 taels of silver for your hard work. A middle-aged man dressed in silk, with a big belly and a wealthy businessman's appearance was panting heavily, waving desperately in one direction of the crowd. Humph, sir is giving a lecture, with a subtle and profound meaning, and every word is precious. Astronomy and geography, cultural and military strategies, and effective methods for governing the world are all inclusive and hard to exchange for 1,000 gold coins. How can they be compared to just 10 taels of silver? The young scholar in a green shirt pushed desperately towards the crowd. At the same time, he didn't forget to turn around and glared fiercely at the wealthy businessman, passionately rebuking him. You, a merchant who is covered in a smell of copper and only knows about Aduwu, have really tarnished Mr. S. lecture. Su Nian blinked his eyes, becoming increasingly puzzled. At this moment, a total of 11 gongs sounded rapidly. Civil and military officials, military and civilian personnel, all dodge. Su Nian tilted his head slightly and thought to himself. Is this the trip of the governor of Liangzhou? Sure enough. After the 11 bangs of gongs, a loud voice rang out. The governor is on patrol. Hurry up and dodge, be careful not to collide with the nobleman. A local governor is like a local emperor. However, after shouting these words, the people did not dodge at all and instead started shouting. Mr. Su never gives lectures, regardless of his social status, he only considers first come first served. Even if you are the governor, don't think about adding to it. After speaking these words, the crowd became even more crowded, and it was really difficult to get out. It's a bit interesting. Su Nian touched his scruffy chin and showed interest on his face, so he didn't rush into the city anymore. Thinking to himself, Su Nian casually grabbed at the crowd and pulled out an arm. Coincidentally, it was precisely the scholar who angrily rebuked the merchant just now. Nowadays, he doesn't have any literary style like a scholar. The crown and hat were tilted, and several stains appeared on the book-growing shirt. One of the shoes was stepped on, and the clothes were worn on the face, leaving an indescribable embarrassment. Brother, what's going on? Where are everyone going, and who is Mr. Su? Su Nian faced off with several questions in a row. Relying on Su Nian's tattered clothes, the scholar covered his nose in disgust and wanted to break free. But Su Nian didn't look hungry, but after 3 years of travel, the strength in his hands was quite strong. Where is he, a weak and powerless scholar, who can get rid of it? Seeing himself constantly being surpassed by others, the scholar had no choice but to hold his nose and make a long story short. Everyone goes to Sanwei bookstore. Today is Mr. Su's monthly lecture, with limited seats available on a first-come, first-served basis. If you miss it, you'll have to wait another month. Honestly. Noa de Liang, almost all scholars with names and surnames, as well as high-ranking officials and dignitaries, have gone. After hastily finishing these words, the scholar hurriedly turned around and pushed forward again. Su Nian blinked his eyes, becoming increasingly confused. I seem to have heard something, but I don't seem to understand it at all. But the curiosity in my heart was completely aroused. I didn't expect that after just 3 years' absence, such an interesting thing happened to us in Xiliang. Su Nian waved to Lao Huang and squeezed his cat's eye forward. Good job, you can't ignore it. Looking upwards, overlooking the entire Liangzhou. You can see the endpoint of more than 10 pedestrian flows. It is a medium-sized building with the words, Sanwei Bookstore, written on the plaque. The noise outside was as loud as a vegetable market. But as soon as they entered the library, everyone held their breath and sat down obediently according to their seats. In the center of the study, there is a circular platform. A handsome young man dressed in white sat upright here. On several tables in front of me, a book, a foot, and just a cup of tea. Feeling the breath around, Su Yen slowly opened his eyes. Memories flood into my mind like a tide, but cannot stir up any emotional waves. It's already the 4th generation. Su Yen looked around with some sighs. That's right, he's not from this world, but from time and space. Even this is not his first time traveling. In his first life, his name was Fang Yun, rising step by step from an unknown humble child. Carrying on the legacy of poetry and literature, writing shocking sacred texts, ultimately embarking on the path of the most sacred, proving immortality and becoming the heavenly sovereign of all realms. In the second year, he read thousands of books in the library, traveled thousands of miles, and reached the realm of lawlessness. Having existed for thousands of years, he created the prosperous Tang dynasty and was collectively known as the Master by the world. Heaven does not give birth to a master, and eternity is like a long night. In the end, for the benefit of countless people on earth, he bravely ascended to the sky, fought against the world's will, and finally transformed into a bright moon, illuminating the heavens and earth with candles. In the third life, Su Yan was reincarnated into Hong Yi. Not only did he transcend the other side, but he also collected the essence of various schools of thought and wrote the Book of Changes. It is even more a grand wish to make all beings in heaven and earth like dragons. The experience of any life is said to be earth-shattering. As a result of this reincarnation, Su Yan realized that he had actually entered a world of comprehensive martial arts. This is not a dimension reduction strike more than a dimension reduction strike. From the beginning, we are already invincible. Looking back, there was no person or thing worth seeing in his eyes. Nothing can attract him. Simply put, Su Yan set up a bookstore and occasionally gave a lesson when he came to be interested, sharing his experiences and insights from the previous 3 lifetimes. The result spreads 10 spreads 100, easily changing names and moving the entire western Liang. Thinking too far, Su Yan looked around and found that the seats were mostly full. Tap the table with a wooden ruler. Pop. Chapter 2. 1 stone of cultural fortune in the world, master occupy 1 stone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. 1 stone of cultural fortune in the world, master occupy 1 stone. As soon as the sound of a wooden ruler sounded, the already quiet study became even more silent, as if a needle had fallen. Everyone, without realizing it, straightened their bodies and stared intently at Su Yan. Remove 1 place. In the corner of the study, in an inconspicuous place, the 2 of them were whispering to each other. A person with frosty white temples and slightly hunched back, looking no different from an ordinary wealthy man. Staring closely at the emaciated old man next to him, dressed in a linen robe, with a disheveled hair and a pale face as white as snow. Yuan Ying. The old man scratched his head and said with some restlessness. Today is the day when Xianxia comes back. Isn't it not good for us to be here? And Chong Su-yen glanced at him, but the old man couldn't grasp it properly. This young man, as you said, has such great talent. For the old man's suspicion, the skinny old man grabbed the green gourd tied to his wrist. Gulyalu took a sip and wiped away the wine stains from the corners of his mouth. Li Yishan only answered with 1 sentence. The issue of Su Xiao, who is both the protagonist and an old friend. The world's cultural fortune is 1 stone, and Mr. Su monopolizes 1 stone. Li Yishan said word by word, with a very slow voice but an extremely serious expression. What? Upon hearing this, Su Xiao was greatly surprised and looked at Li Yishan in disbelief. She then went to see Su Yan, who was only about 18 years old on stage. The shock is evident in words. We have been together for decades, almost half of our lives. Su Xiao can be said to know Li Yishan very well. But that's also why he was so shocked. Li Yishan's pride in his heart is not inferior to anyone else. What kind of existence would Su Yan be who can be evaluated by him like this? You should know that even Huang Sanjia, who used to stir up the world with just 1 mouth and annihilate several countries. Li Yishan, even the heavens would not admit to being 1 line higher than themselves. Just a front line. Su Xiao unconsciously straightened his waist and, after years of absence, a rare passion surged in his chest. He has a feeling that today's trip is bound to yield great results. Perhaps it will even surpass the time when I won the 2 major military divisions of Yinshi and Yangkai back then. What are we going to talk about today? Dozens or even hundreds of people in the room were attentively listening to the lecture. Su Yan, however, fell into a dilemma of choice. He couldn't make up his mind for a moment, what he was going to do today. There's no way. With thousands and thousands of years of experience, Su Yan has already seen through the ups and downs of the world, the rise and fall of dynasties, the 100 schools of thought, and the will of heaven. He knows too much. Why not let them ask their own questions and see what they want to say? Su Yan thought to himself, lightly tapping several cases with a ruler and casually speaking. Today, let's change our approach. It's not me speaking, it's you guys asking and I'll give you an answer. No matter what the problem is. Su Yan lightly tapped the table with his fingers and spoke confidently. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire library immediately became boiling. Everyone couldn't help but widen their eyes, lean forward, and gulp down their saliva. Even whispering and discussing began. Su Yan has been giving lectures for 20 or 30 times, but he has never done so before. Mr. Su is a scholar of nature and humanity. I was about to ask him about a certain obstacle in his studies, but I didn't dare to speak up. The pattern is too small. Who doesn't know that Mr. Su knows astronomy above and geography below, and has a clever calculation of the sky? I want to ask him, when will he be able to achieve the title of Golden List and honor his ancestors? Your Excellency has limited me to 3 days to solve that case, otherwise I will be dismissed and investigated. Mr. Su can definitely show me a clear path. For a moment, everyone's hearts suddenly stirred. They are still pondering what to ask, or waiting for others to throw stones and ask directions. When Yishan heard Su Yan's words on the side, his eyes had already burst into captivating brilliance. It doesn't seem like it's a disaster, it doesn't seem like it's been 2 years since I had a good life. Later students are not advancing, dare to ask sir. Striving to suppress his excitement, Yishan propped his hands on the table and stood up, speaking loudly. In the world of Kyushu, there are many imperial dynasties. There are Great Ming, Great Zhou, Great Song, there are countless other small foreign countries. Each country has its own views, either acting in a royal or hegemonic way, and there is endless struggle. Some people in the martial arts world are using martial arts to resist the ban. Xing, the people suffer. Death, the people suffer. Students have been pondering for decades, but still have no solution. Today, I dare to ask Su Zi if there is a good remedy to solve it. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire library suddenly regained its previous quietness. I don't know how many people turned around to look at Yishan. This issue is really too big, it almost encompasses everything about humanity. Even sages cannot provide a satisfactory answer. Let these eyes only think about their own glory, wealth, and glory, and those who have achieved success or failure feel ashamed. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Sun Yan sneaked his cat's eye over the door. Thanks to 3 years of travel, he is now doing these sneaky activities can be described as practice makes perfect, and one's body is almost average. Coincidentally, his seat was located right in the corner where Su Xiao was. Sit down and haven't had time to catch a breath yet. Sun Yan lifted his head and saw his father's face, which was familiar but slightly older than when he left home. Suddenly, Sun Yan's nose twisted in anger and his anger burned within the 5 internal organs. Good guy, no wonder you didn't send someone to pick me up. It turns out you've come here. I heard that books are more important than meeting my son. Sun Yan was about to get angry on the spot, and he also vented his suffering over the past 3 years. Su Xiao rubbed his head and smiled awkwardly, feeling guilty. Although this son's appearance is vastly different from when he left home, as an old man, there is no reason why he cannot recognize his precious son. He just didn't expect to run into his son here. I'm going to have bad luck today. Su Xiao sighed helplessly and was about to accept his fate, hoping that the news of the Western Yang King being publicly taught by his son would not be spread. It's okay. At this moment, Yishan also spoke up, attracting Sun Yan's attention to the past. For this master who uses bamboo boards to hit his palm, Sun Yan has much more respect than his father. Good luck to you today. However, this matter is not over yet. Sun Yan gave Su Xiao a glare. Su Yan put down his bamboo ruler and smiled at Li Yishan. Originally, Su didn't have a plan for what to talk about today. After hearing your question, I do have it now. After saying these words, Su Yan pondered for a moment and organized his language in his stomach. Based on his experience, he couldn't help but see that Li Yishan's problem was very dangerous. As long as the answer goes a bit deeper and involves real things, it may cause a huge uproar. Attract the anger of major monarchs. It is not impossible to arrest oneself and even send someone to kill oneself directly. But so what? Su Yan thought lightly. Even in the world of Kyushu, all the experts and armies joined forces to encircle and kill themselves. Just a single finger or even a glance can completely solve the problem. What are you afraid of? Chapter 3. I have dragon-slaying skills, do you dare to learn? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. I have dragon-slaying skills, do you dare to learn? How could he really know? Observing Su Yan's expression, Li Yishan's heart trembled violently. He raised this question with the intention of making things difficult for Su Yan. Although Li Yishan has a high evaluation of Su Yan, believing that he far surpasses himself. But I don't even think the other party has the ability to answer this question. Or, more precisely, there is no answer to this question. There is a quantitative relationship between land and output in the world. It's impossible to feed everyone. Especially when fathers give birth to children and children give birth to grandchildren, the number of people increases endlessly. There are also aristocrats who enjoy privileges and occupy far more shares than they deserve. Human desires are endless, and evil thoughts are innate. In Li Yishan's view, we want to solve these problems. Unless we produce food and clothing 100 times or 1,000 times more than we do now. Eliminate all differences in status between high and low. Remove all kinds of bad aspects of human nature, such as selfishness, greed, cruelty, domineering, and cruelty, from birth. But how could these be achieved? However, gazing at Su Yan's expression, Li Yishan suddenly felt a clear realization in his heart. Su Yan, it's serious. Students are listening attentively to Su Zigao's discourse. Li Yishan knelt down on the ground, taking on the posture of a late scholar asking questions, with a hint of expectation in his heart that even he couldn't believe. Su Xiao and Sun Yan on the side, seeing the situation, also threw the small incident just now out of the blue and sat upright. I have 5 volumes of dragon-slaying skills. Do you dare to learn them? Su Yan looked down at the surroundings from a high position, mainly looking at Li Yishan and his 3 companions, and spoke calmly. The sound echoed inside and outside the library. The air suddenly condensed and settled, as heavy as refined iron, making it impossible to breathe. Even many people are trembling, their tops soaked in cold sweat. I started to regret having 2 extra ears, and today I came here. No one doesn't know what dragon represents. That is the supreme imperial power, whether in major or smaller dynasties. There is no difference between them. Su Yan dared to say the 3 words, dragon-slaying skill. Is this trying to rebel? If the news leaks out, everyone present will have to move their minds. Of course, there are also reactions that differ from others. For example, Li Yishan and a few others. In an instant, all 3 of them were stunned and immediately exchanged a glance. Su Zhao's expression remained unchanged, but his eyebrows slightly furrowed. Li Yishan's face was indeed like this. As for Sun Yan, his body trembled incessantly. But not because of fear, but because of excitement. He came here just curious to join in the fun. Now, it's completely different. Today, I will only talk about one thing to you, which is for the sake of sharing property. Su Yan raised a finger, his expression rare and not as casual as before. In the journey of the Great Road, the world is for the public, selecting talents and abilities, and promoting honesty and harmony. Old friends are not only close to their relatives, they are not closed off due to reasons, they are not closed off due to theft, they are not closed off due to external factors. Speaking of which, Su Yan paused for a moment and slowly uttered the last 4 words. It's called Datong. The era of Datong has been unknown for many years since the proposal of the former sage. Can it never be truly realized? A middle-aged scholar in the shape of a teacher shook his head in despair. The era of Datong is the lifelong aspiration of countless scholars. But over countless years, they have also realized that this is simply impossible to accomplish. Only existing in ideals. No. Su Yan shook his head gently but firmly. I have truly witnessed it. Without an emperor, one's position is determined by a person's character and ability, rather than their background and bloodline. Impossible. When the bookstore was neutral, someone countered and saw them with an extremely frightened expression on their faces, angrily standing up and refuting Su Yan. The emperor is the son of heaven, representing the heavens to shepherd and care for the people. How should the people survive without His Majesty the Emperor? Mr. Su, we respect you very much, but we must not continue with such heinous remarks. These people's words resonated and echoed countless times in the library. But there are also a few people, such as Yishan, Sun Yan, etc., with disdainful sneers at the corners of their mouths. The higher the status, like them. I just realized that those emperors were nothing special, they still had 2 eyes and 1 mouth. It doesn't matter how noble others are. Otherwise, do you think why did I say it was dragon slaying? Su Yan also sneered. Since he had started, it was not easy for him to stop. The elderly have a place to take care of, and the young have a place to rely on. However, compared to the world of great harmony, I would rather call it everyone is like a dragon, or GCZY. At this point, Su Yan couldn't help but close his eyes, as he was about to reveal his achievement concepts from before and in his 3rd life. Suddenly, the sky and earth suddenly darkened, with thick dark clouds sinking low and almost pressing down to the top of the city. The thunderous sound suddenly echoed through the sky and earth, continuously flowing. At first, it seemed like it was still in an infinite distance. But soon, it was as if it was exploding directly in my ear, capturing the divine soul. In the study room, I don't know how many people's faces turned pale in an instant, scared out of their wits. It was his words that brought retribution from heaven. After a brief period of absence, officials, scholars, and the people who supported the emperor's sanctity only then. As if receiving some proof of support, he was in high spirits and shouted excitedly at Su Yan. Oh my goodness, you have appeared. Su Yan shook his head lightly and did not explain much to these ignorant people. But instead, he released his divine thoughts and traveled thousands of miles of rivers and mountains in the western Liang, and even the entire Kyushu, in just one breath. Su Yan has experienced countless years and witnessed the birth and death of countless worlds. He can be certain that the thunder just now, although not a divine manifestation. But it is not natural either. Behind it, there is a trace of extremely mysterious power that drives it. Hey, is this? Su Yan nodded with great interest. Just now, this spectacle happened not only in Liangzhou, but also in Xiliang. But at the same time, it swept across the world of Kyushu. Throughout the world, millions of people can see this happening. Some meaning. Su Yan was about to unleash his divine power, go upstream, and trace the root of the mysterious power. Heaven and earth, rebirth and transformation. The thunderous roar came to an abrupt end. Thousands of miles of dark clouds split apart in the middle. Countless golden lights shine out from the cracks, dispersing the dark clouds. Then, I saw these countless golden lights, as if they were threads. The golden light crisscrosses, making one feel dizzy. But with 3 or 5 breaths, it weaves itself into a vast and unparalleled golden scroll. spanning between heaven and earth, completely covering the entire sky and sky. An inexplicable, majestic and exquisite aura rippled out, sweeping across the world. On the scroll, there are countless golden words swimming rapidly. What is this? Li Yishan, Su Xiao, and Su Nian looked at each other again, hoping to draw answers from each other's eyes. Chapter 4. The golden list comes out, counting the top 10 Confucian sages. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The golden list comes out, counting the top 10 Confucian sages. The answer, of course, is no. Although all three of them can be called knowledgeable, they still have no clue about this inexplicable appearance of the golden scroll. Their eyes intertwined, and the three of them unconsciously looked at Su Yan. In their view, the golden list appeared after Su Yan made the arrogant statement of not wanting the emperor. Perhaps this Su Zi doesn't necessarily know anything. Unfortunately, I am destined to be disappointed. It's true and has some meaning. Su Yan looked at the golden scroll, deep in his eyes, the essence gathered, as if he wanted to see the scroll clearly. Others in the library are unaware. But Su Yan is very clear. In the moment when the dark clouds dissipate and the golden list appears in this world, a mysterious and inexplicable force swept through the entire Kyushu region, extracting a trace of the breath of billions of people. Even Su Yan is no exception. He did not resist with his martial arts skills, but instead openly released the aura blockade. Because he can sense it. This golden list not only captures the breath of living people, even triggered some mysterious changes, summoning the long river of time and space. Extract all the breath that has existed throughout history. This handwriting is really not small. Su Yan really wants to see what this gold list really wants to do. The Great Zhou Empire, inside the Hanyuan Palace. The civil and military officials were arranged in an orderly manner in two teams according to their official positions, and presented their opinions in turn. After the curtain, sitting upright on a spacious dragon chair. Not a man, but a stunning woman. The dragon robe wrapped around her body not only did not diminish her beauty, but also further enhanced the woman's majesty. She is a legend. From the day of the imperial dynasty in Kyushu, all emperors have been men. Until this empress of the Zhou dynasty appeared in the air. The girl was forced to enter the palace and was chosen as a talented person. But she did not succumb to fate, but instead launched a coup, changing the day and establishing the foundation of the Zhou Empire. From that day on, the empress changed her name to Zhao. Zhao refers to the soaring sun and moon, metaphorically referring to oneself as the vast energy of the sun and moon, illuminating heaven and earth. It is evident that his ambition is domineering. After 10 years of establishment, the Great Zhou dynasty's national strength has been thriving and has become one of the top 3 in various imperial dynasties. In Kyushu, those who originally wanted to see her joke because she was a woman. He gave a loud slap in the face. How can one be disrespectful and fearless in the face of this peerless empress, a civil and military official? After quietly listening to the memorials of the officials, after the curtain falls, a faint and majestic female voice should be heard to give a reply. But a few sentences, often only a few words. But everything is crucial and impressive. Today's court meeting is coming to an end. Suddenly, the sky darkened and thunder sounded. Then quickly restore the light. Dear officials, are there anyone who knows the origin of this object? Wu Zhao stood up from the dragon chair, carrying both hands on his back, and walked out of the Hanyuan Hall. Looking up at this golden list, even Empress Wu Zhao couldn't help but feel surprised. The civil and military officials who followed him looked at each other several times, then shook their heads together. Since the founding of the Holy Emperor, the sea and rivers have been peaceful, the country is peaceful and the people are safe. The sharp voice of Li Junqian echoed among the courtiers, and he was filled with a proud and excited expression. This object appears in the Great Zhou dynasty, it must be a spirit from heaven, praising the auspiciousness of your Majesty's literary and martial virtues. How fortunate I am to be able to witness this scene with my own eyes. Listening to Jun Chen's shameless flattery, the civil and military officials of Zhou dynasty immediately swallowed a fly. His face was conflicted, and he felt an indescribable discomfort in his stomach, almost wanting to vomit on the spot. Zibuyu is a strange and chaotic person. Li Junchen, you are at least a scholar. How could you be so shameless? But no one came out to refute Li Junchen. This is the sinister and poisonous aspect of it. He linked the Golden List with the achievements of Empress Wu Zhao. Doubting whether the Golden List is auspicious can easily lead him to label it as a saint of doubt. You should know that this guy is very skilled in severe torture, forced punishment, and turning a deer into a horse. It's okay. The Heavenly Lord immediately slapped his face. As soon as Li Junchen spoke, the golden words that were originally swimming rapidly on the scroll immediately became clear. The heavenly way is approaching, and the Golden List is emerging. I haven't had time to think about what the Golden List means. Rows of golden characters have emerged rapidly. Kyushu Confucian Saint List. The vast 9 provinces have been passed down through the ages, and sages have emerged one after another to establish one's heart for heaven and earth, to establish one's destiny for the people, to continue learning for the past, and to bring peace to all generations. Today, we will establish a list of the top 10 Confucian sages. All those who make it to the list will receive heavenly rewards. Come on, sir. Is this what you mean by heaven praising His Majesty's auspiciousness? If it weren't for the emergence of words, I'm afraid you might have fooled me in the past. Your Highness, I come to Junchen. This person has a honey-bellied sword, but it is actually a villain. Your Majesty, please expel it from the divine capital as soon as possible and never reuse it for life. Looking at the words appearing on the gold list, civil and military officials suddenly became excited. Li Junchen, I asked you to flatter the dragons, but now, let's flatter the horse's hooves. Silence. They were about to seize the opportunity to pursue when an old minister closest to Wu Zhao suddenly spoke up. The Holy One, the general of the country, is fortunate, and there must be Xianxia. When a country is about to fall, there will be demons. This list is by no means unfounded in this world. I kindly request your Majesty to quickly send someone to investigate it thoroughly. Daming, on the outskirts of the imperial city, Hulong Mountain Villa. Zhu ignored his expression and closed his eyes wearily, gently kneading his own eyes. After reviewing dozens of pieces of intelligence in one breath, and then summarizing them, even with his martial arts cultivation, I don't feel a bit tired. After a brief rest, Zhu ignored his intention to turn on the lights and fight again. Suddenly Zhu ignored his feet and took advantage of the situation to snatch out of the main hall, rushing to the roof ridge of the hall. Then, several figures followed closely around the Hulong Mountain Villa. Finally, they lined up behind him. My adoptive father, what exactly is this Golden List and the Confucian sage? Shangguan Haitang, dressed in men's clothing, looked up at the Confucian Saint Golden List and finally couldn't resist her curiosity. Relying on her small and capricious power as a woman, she asked Zhu to ignore it. Shangguan Haitang is a disciple of the traceless young master, although her martial arts are the lowest among the 4 great spies of heaven and earth, Xianhuang. But the medical divination and astrology are omniscient, and they also control the top village in the world. Their understanding of strange stories is second only to Zhu Wuwu. But she couldn't even tell the origin of this Golden List. My adoptive father doesn't know either. Zhu ignored his face with solemnity and didn't turn his head, just staring at the gold list. After a brief shock, in his heart, he quickly thought about it. His focus is not on being a Confucian sage, but on the Golden List itself. Perhaps the way to wake up Su Xian is within it. Zhu ignored the tightly clenched fists of his hands hidden in his sleeves, showing a great deal of inner turmoil. 100,000 copies saved. A reward, 500,000 words explosive. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The 10th rank of Confucian sages, poisonous scholarly Yishan. 20 years ago, a mistake resulted in Xianxia being severely injured and on the brink of death. It has always been Zhao who ignores the eternal pain in his heart. Of course, as a result, he surpassed the unbeaten mischievous child and quickly rose to fame in temples and rivers and lakes. But he forever lost the reason for doing so. For the past 20 years, Zhao ignored the search for the world and wanted to find a way to save Xianxia and restore Yang. It's just that there hasn't been any progress at all. The most likely Tianxia and cardamom cannot be found, let alone others. After so many years, Zhao ignored and was on the verge of despair. Then, the golden list suddenly appeared. Such a peculiar object is beyond the control of ordinary people. It's not a natural achievement of heaven and earth, it's just being controlled by immortals. Zhao ignored Ding Ding Nian Dao. If you master this mysterious power, perhaps you can revive Xianxia. His thoughts diverged to the point where Zhao ignored them and did not notice. The text on the gold list, scattered and gathered again, has slowly undergone changes. Ranked 10th on the Zhozhou Confucian sage list, poisonous scholarly Yishan. Subordinate forces. Shiliang Liangzhou City, Sanwei Bookstore. Hey, Yuanying, it's your name. Su Xiao resisted Li Yishan with his elbow joint and lowered his voice. You have been certified as one of the top 10 Confucian sages by heaven and earth. I really envy you. What kind of bullshit gold list is this? Master, why are you ranked 10th? The thief really doesn't have eyes. On the other hand, when Sun Yan saw this line of text, he couldn't help but curse out loud. In his heart, his master Li Yishan is the most powerful figure. He couldn't believe that there were still a few who could rank before Li Yishan. Silence, Xiaoyan. Li Yishan shook his head with a hint of displeasure on his face. It's better to rank lower for oneself. But he became accustomed to hiding in the dark, providing advice for the Su family and the Western Liang. Although everyone who should know his existence knows. But now, surprisingly, this list of laborers has been directly exposed. After calculation, this part must also be taken into account. However, Li Yishan is also very curious about who can rank ahead of him. Is there still so many people in this world who are better than me and Huang Sanjiao? De Zhou, Han Yuan Hall. Poisonous man, Li Yishan. Wu Zhao looked up at the golden list, with a thoughtful expression on her face. It's interesting that this Western Liang, not in those major dynasties, can actually have a ranked 10th Confucian sage. With a wave of his sleeve, Wu Zhao suddenly turned around. These people should be working for me, Zhou. It's a pity to stay in the small Western Liang. Do you think so, my dear friends? Your Majesty. This is not appropriate. Daqin, Xianyang, Zhangtai Palace. Li Si folded his hands on his chest and urged Qin Emperor Yingzheng. Since the appearance of the list of Confucian sages in the sky, he and several other important officials have been summoned to the palace by Yingzheng. Coincidentally, when seeing the name of Li Yishan, Yingzheng couldn't help but feel a sentiment similar to that of Wu Zhao. I have a radius of thousands of miles in Daqin, and I am full of talented people. Do you know if there is anyone who can make it to the list? Just as he spoke, Prime Minister Li Si immediately jumped out. This person is known as a poisonous person, naturally with a malicious heart and often uses cunning in schemes. Such people have a cunning mind. If they are recruited, they may lead wolves into the room. Your Majesty must be on guard. Watching Li Si's appearance, Qin Emperor Yingzheng chuckled inwardly. He knew Li Si's thoughts the best. Li Si was not originally from Qin, just because he saw a better way out in the state of Qin. So he abandoned his homeland and served the great Qin. Even back then, he specifically wrote a letter pleading with the state of Qin not to expel his foreign disciples. You have to say how loyal he is, that's really ridiculous. It's nothing more than worrying about Li Yishan being invited by the Qin emperor to be reused and threatening his own position. Just like Han Fizi back then. However, although Emperor Qin saw through this matter, he would not expose it. Li Xizheng searched his heart and saw the golden list slowly transforming into a picture, hanging high in the sky like a mirage. In the picture, Li Yishan comes from a humble family. When Su Xiao participated in the spring and autumn war with 800 old soldiers, he relied on his youthful passion. But as Su Xiao's team grew larger and larger, from 800 ancestors to 1,000 elite soldiers, and even tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, to the great general who rode on horses throughout the spring and autumn period. A cavity of hot blood is already useless. In addition, with Su Xiao leading the way, there are more and more tough battles to deal with. At this time, relying solely on passion and individual courage is destined not to go far. There is always a need for someone to sit in the rear, someone to oversee the overall situation, and someone to come up with ideas and strategies. Many things. It all needs to be accomplished by strategists. The first strategist to follow Su Xiao was Li Yishan. It was also Li Yishan who personally crafted the indomitable military soul for Su Xiao. However, at that time, Su Xiao was by his side. Li Yishan is not the only strategist. There are more. Zhao Chonglin, who is so famous that no one in the world knows him. Zhao Chonglin is skilled in using Yang Mao to be praised by people. However, Li Yishan is known for his love of calculating conspiracies compared to each other. This made everyone aware of Mr. Zhao, a strategist under Su Xiao's banner, but unaware of the existence of another strategist, Li Yishan. With the assistance of one bright and one dark, Su Xiao had a formidable army of 300,000 who recognized the Su character Wang flag. But the world only knows Zhao Chonglin, but not Li Yishan. Even those who know Li Yishan often feel that he is not as good as Zhao Chonglin. Only Su Xiao knew that Li Yishan was not inferior to Zhao Chonglin, he just didn't like to appear in front of others. If you don't argue or grab, it's Li Yishan. The only time Li Yishan and Zhao Chonglin had a dispute was when many people thought it was not a big deal. In the picture, Su Xiao appeared at the highest position, below were 6 adopted sons and a group of military leaders. At that time, Su Xiaoma stepped on the spring and autumn, leaving only the last few countries. The trend of global stability has become clear. Many people under Su Xiao's command gathered here, with a clear purpose. Discuss whether Su Xiao declared himself emperor. During the spring and autumn war, Su Xiao defeated several countries with his own strength and had a large army of 300,000 iron cavalry. Almost everyone believes that Su Xiao should be proclaimed emperor with such strength. Xubei and Zhaonan, governed by drawing the river. Dili, who became the emperor, Su Xiao, you can also do it. This is what Zhao Chonglin said. It is also the meaning of many soldiers. Su Xiao proclaimed himself emperor, and they could also be promoted to higher ranks. Why not do so? And among the army, who doesn't want the people they follow to become the emperor? Only Li Yishan, with almost everyone supporting Su Xiao's claim to be emperor, stood up and became the only person who opposed Su Xiao's claim to be emperor. P.S. The new book is not easy. I beg everyone to give me some flowers, tips, feedback, and comments. Thank you. Whenever there is a reward, it will explode at 10 tomorrow. Chapter 5. The 10th rank of Confucian sages, poisonous scholar Li Yishan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The 10th rank of Confucian sages, poisonous scholar Li Yishan. 20 years ago, a mistake resulted in Su Xian being severely injured and on the brink of death. It has always been Zhu who ignores the eternal pain in his heart. Of course, as a result, he surpassed the unbeaten mischievous child and quickly rose to fame in temples and rivers and lakes. But he forever lost the reason for doing so. For the past 20 years, Zhou ignored the search for the world and wanted to find a way to save Xianxia and restore Yang. It's just that there hasn't been any progress at all. The most likely Tianxia and cardamom cannot be found, let alone others. After so many years, Zhou ignored and was on the verge of despair. Then, the golden list suddenly appeared. Such a peculiar object is beyond the control of ordinary people. It's not a natural achievement of heaven and earth, it's just being controlled by immortals. Zhou ignored Ding Ding Nian Dao. If you master this mysterious power, perhaps you can revive Xianxia. His thoughts diverged to the point where Zhou ignored them and did not notice. The text on the gold list, scattered and gathered again, has slowly undergone changes. Ranked 10th on the Zhou Confucian sage list, poisonous scholar Yishan. Subordinate forces. Xiliang Liangzhou City, Sanwei Bookstore. Hey, Yuanying, it's your name. Su Xiao resisted Yishan with his elbow joint and lowered his voice. You have been certified as one of the top 10 Confucian sages by heaven and earth. I really envy you. What kind of bullshit gold list is this? Master, why are you ranked 10th? The thief really doesn't have eyes. On the other hand, when Sun Yan saw this line of text, he couldn't help but curse out loud. In his heart, his master Yishan is the most powerful figure. He couldn't believe that there were still a few who could rank before Yishan. Silence, Xiaoyan. Yishan shook his head with a hint of displeasure on his face. It's better to rank lower for oneself. But he became accustomed to hiding in the dark, providing advice for the Su family and the Western Liang. Although everyone who should know his existence knows. But now, surprisingly, this list of laborers has been directly exposed. After calculation, this part must also be taken into account. However, Yishan is also very curious about who can rank ahead of him. Is there still so many people in this world who are better than me and Huang Sanjiao? De Zhou, Han Yuan Hall. Poisonous man, Yishan. Wu Zhao looked up at the golden list, with a thoughtful expression on her face. It's interesting that this Western Liang, not in those major dynasties, can actually have a ranked 10th Confucian sage. With a wave of his sleeve, Wu Zhao suddenly turned around. These people should be working for me, Zhou. It's a pity to stay in the small Western Liang. Do you think so, my dear friends? Your Majesty. This is not appropriate. Daqin, Xianyang, Zhangtai Palace. Li Si folded his hands on his chest and urged Qin Emperor Yingzheng. Since the appearance of the list of Confucian sages in the sky, he and several other important officials have been summoned to the palace by Yingzheng. Coincidentally, when seeing the name of Yishan, Yingzheng couldn't help but feel a sentiment similar to that of Wu Zhao. I have a radius of thousands of miles in Daqin, and I am full of talented people. Do you know if there is anyone who can make it to the list? Just as he spoke, Prime Minister Li Si immediately jumped out. This person is known as a poisonous person, naturally with a malicious heart and often uses cunning in schemes. Such people have a cunning mind. If they are recruited, they may lead wolves into the room. Your Majesty must be on guard. Watching Li Si's appearance, Qin Emperor Yingzheng chuckled inwardly. He knew Li Si's thoughts the best. Li Si was not originally from Qin, just because he saw a better way out in the state of Qin. So he abandoned his homeland and served the great Qin. Even back then, he specifically wrote a letter pleading with the state of Qin not to expel his foreign disciples. You have to say how loyal he is, that's really ridiculous. It's nothing more than worrying about Yishan being invited by the Qin emperor to be reused and threatening his own position. Just like Han Fizi back then. However, although Emperor Qin saw through this matter, he would not expose it. Li Sijing searched his heart and saw the golden list slowly transforming into a picture, hanging high in the sky like a mirage. In the picture, Li Shan comes from a humble family. When Su Xiao participated in the spring and autumn war with 800 old soldiers, he relied on his youthful passion. But as Su Zhao's team grew larger and larger, from 800 ancestors to 1,000 elite soldiers, and even tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, to the great general who rode on horses throughout the spring and autumn period, a cavity of hot blood is already useless. In addition, with Su Zhao leading the way, there are more and more tough battles to deal with. At this time, relying solely on passion and individual courage is destined not to go far. There is always a need for someone to sit in the rear, someone to oversee the overall situation, and someone to come up with ideas and strategies. Many things. It all needs to be accomplished by strategists. The first strategist to follow Su Zhao was Yishan. It was also Yishan who personally crafted the indomitable military soul for Su Zhao. However, at that time, Su Zhao was by his side. Yishan is not the only strategist. There are more. Zhao Chonglin, who is so famous that no one in the world knows him. Zhao Chonglin is skilled in using Yang Mao to be praised by people. However, Yishan is known for his love of calculating conspiracies compared to each other. This made everyone aware of Mr. Zhao, a strategist under Su Zhao's banner, but unaware of the existence of another strategist, Yishan. With the assistance of one bright and one dark, Su Zhao had a formidable army of 300,000 who recognized the Su character Wang flag. But the world only knows Zhao Chonglin, but not Yishan. Even those who know Yishan often feel that he is not as good as Zhao Chonglin. Only Su Zhao knew that Yishan was not inferior to Zhao Chonglin, he just didn't like to appear in front of others. If you don't argue or grab, it's Yishan. The only time Yishan and Zhao Chonglin had a dispute was when many people thought it was not a big deal. In the picture, Su Zhao appeared at the highest position, below were 6 adopted sons and a group of military leaders. At that time, Su Xiaoma stepped on the spring and autumn, leaving only the last few countries. The trend of global stability has become clear. Many people under Su Zhao's command gathered here, with a clear purpose. Discuss whether Su Zhao declared himself emperor. During the Spring and Autumn War, Su Zhao defeated several countries with his own strength and had a large army of 300,000 iron cavalry. Almost everyone believes that Su Zhao should be proclaimed emperor with such strength. Xubei and Zhaonan, governed by drawing the river. Dili, who became the emperor, Su Zhao, you can also do it. This is what Zhao Chonglin said. It is also the meaning of many soldiers. Su Zhao proclaimed himself emperor, and they could also be promoted to higher ranks. Why not do so? And among the army, who doesn't want the people they follow to become the emperor? Only Yishan, with almost everyone supporting Su Zhao's claim to be emperor, stood up and became the only person who opposed Su Zhao's claim to be emperor. P.S. The new book is not easy. I beg everyone to give me some flowers, tips, feedback, and comments. Thank you. Whenever there is a reward, it will explode at 10 tomorrow. Chapter 6. Northern Liang of Home, Zhao Tianxia. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Northern Liang of Home, Zhao Tianxia, to proclaim oneself emperor. Let's take a look at Zhao Chonglin or Yishan, who is 3 parts weak. Ming Dynasty, Nanjing City. After Zhu Yuanzhang saw Zhao Chonglin's proposal of Su Zhao declaring himself emperor on the golden list, his evaluation of Zhao Chonglin was not as high. The most practical truth is to accumulate grain and slowly proclaim oneself king. At this time, proclaiming oneself emperor will make the Su family the target of criticism. Su De and Lu Bowen on the side also quite agreed with what Zhu Yuanzhang said. The founding ruler of their great Ming dynasty can be regarded as a legend of grassroots rise. Old Zhu has been a monk, a beggar, and a soldier. The ultimate ascension to the throne relies not only on strength, but also on a keen insight into people's hearts and the world situation. Your Majesty's words are correct. The pattern of Zhao Chongling is still 3 points weaker than that of Li Yishan. Lu Bowen sighed on the side and said, perhaps Li Yishan is the true talent for supporting the country. In the picture, the Spring and Autumn War has entered its final stage. In the Spring and Autumn period, the decline of various countries was evident, and they were overwhelmed by the Su family army and couldn't breathe. In the Battle of Zalibi, the Su family's army engaged in a bloody battle, while Wu Su, dressed in white, beat drums. In the deadly battle, almost all members of the 1st Fishing Drum Battalion were killed. After a fierce battle, we finally defeated the God Yi Baixia of the Western Chu army. The situation in the world is becoming increasingly clear. With the continuous victories of the Su family army, they have unconsciously split into 2 factions. One faction, led by Li Yishan, advocated for Su Xiao to immediately head north and return to Beijing after the Battle of the Western Wall. The other faction, with Zhao Chongling as the core, vigorously advocated for separatism and self-defense to plan for the governance of the Yangtze River, and then fought a great war similar to the Western Wall to determine the fate of the world. At this moment, the Su family has come to a crossroads of life and death. The power of the Su family is weaker compared to that of Beimang and Nanli. Moreover, if the Su family occupies Jiangbei, they are likely to face a situation of being sandwiched between 2 sides. In Zhangtai Palace, Meng Tian stood from the perspective of military strategy and strongly disagreed with the Su family's strategy of separatism and self-defense. This strategy, no matter how you look at it, is a risky move that will either succeed or succeed. But General, this is the temptation of enfeoffment and worship. How many people in the world can resist it? Li Si refuted on the side. Although he was also aware that if the Su family were under separatist rule at this time, it would definitely be a situation of being attacked from both sides. But when a man walks in the world, who doesn't want to make achievements? Who in the world can resist such temptation? At this moment, the Su family army is also experiencing this temptation test in the picture. Most of the generals in the military chose to stand up and support Zhao Chongling, while Li Yishan's supporters became fewer and fewer. In the end, this matter was ultimately brought to Su Zhao's account. Bianjing during the Great Song dynasty, when Emperor Taizu Zhao Kuangyin saw the scene appearing on the gold medal list, he suddenly felt some empathy. Did he not, like Su Xiao, be adorned with yellow robes by a group of subordinates at Qinxiao and ultimately establish the Great Song dynasty? This could be a choice, but Su Zhao's path is much more difficult than mine back then. Zhao Kuangyin sighed. After all, at this moment in the north, there is still an exceptionally powerful Beimang who has been watching from the wall, waiting for the opportunity to take control of the Central Plains. Moreover, in the Battle of Zalibi, the Su family army was a disastrous victory. Although the elite of the Western Chu were completely annihilated, the Su family army suffered losses of up to half as a result. At that time, he was Zhao Kuangyin, but he won the Great Song dynasty bloodless. Zhao Kuangyin was curious in his heart, what choice would Su Xiao, who is now in great power, make? Brothers, today we will dig our hearts out. It's not that Su Xiao didn't give our brothers glory, wealth, and status. If we were to break up at this time, our Su family army would bear the blame and may eventually be destroyed under the pincer attack of the South and North Mangs. What the military strategist said is what Su Xiao thought. Don't even mention any separatist regimes claiming to be emperors and establishing a country in the future. Otherwise, don't blame me Su Xiao for disregarding my past feelings. In the big tent, Su Zhao's words cut off all the thoughts of Zhao Chongling's faction. Marshal, brothers don't understand. Not to mention the final outcome of the separatist regime, but at least we live a comfortable life. That's right, if the emperor were to cross the river and demolish the bridge, and the rabbits would die and the dogs would cook, the ultimate outcome of our Su family army would also be the same. It's better to die in battle than to suppress and surrender. In the big tent, a group of Su family generals led by Wu Qi and Su Pu were angry and immediately resonated with many Su family generals. Upon hearing this, Su Xiao couldn't help but sigh. Now is not the time to make a dragon chair. What we want is the whole world, not 1/3 of the world. Although we don't make a dragon chair now, it doesn't mean we won't sit in the future. Our Su family army suffered a significant loss this time, and now we need to rest and recuperate. The generals of the Su family army, who listened to Su Zhao's earnest persuasion, not only did not understand, but most of them became disheartened and chose to leave the military. Even worse, Su Xiao turned against him and became enemies. Tens of thousands of soldiers left the Su family army, and Su Xiao was granted the title of king and fiefdom. However, under the planning of Yishan, he forced Nanli to make concessions, creating a pattern of home in the west, Zhao in the world. Su Xiao is clear-headed and doesn't declare himself emperor, but if tens of thousands of soldiers leave and declare himself emperor, the entire Su family army will lose. Don't dwell on one family and one surname, stand firm in the world. If Xiliang develops steadily and does not leave 3 generations, it will have a majestic attitude towards the world. In the Zhangtai Palace, at this time, Yingzheng had some appreciation for Su Xiao. How similar is the Western Liang today to the great Qin of the past. He, Yingzheng, was just a vested interest after his ancestors rose up in the 6th generation, while Su Xiao was a similar existence to the founder of business. As long as the Su family develops steadily, there is a possibility of going east within a few generations. In the picture, the torrent of time continues to roll forward. The overall situation of destroying the Western Chu kingdom is determined, and attacking Western Shu is the final battle to completely pacify the Central Plains. Before this war, Zhao Chongling passed away, and Li Yishan officially took the stage to showcase his strength in front of the world. He was also known as the poisonous man by the world because Li Yishan used all kinds of desperate tactics. Those who are higher than the wheels, regardless of women or children, will be killed. How could there have been such a desperate plan in this world? Seeing this scene, Empress Wu Zhao couldn't help but take a cold breath. Various countries are attacking, and it is inevitable that civilians will be slaughtered. But even if it is a peerless fierce general who slaughters enemy civilians, it is only a city and a pool of people. It is truly rare for someone like Li Yishan to slaughter a country, even women and children. Whether in terms of layout or planning, Li Yishan is indeed one of the few talented strategists in Kyushu. But who dares to use such talents? As long as a monarch cherishes his wings, he doesn't want to use such a vassal to tarnish his reputation. Such a poisonous warrior can compete for the world. But in the prosperous era of the Tang dynasty, I don't need such a strategist. Wu Zhao let out a sigh. Li Yishan, in times of chaos, there are talents who can establish a country, but in times of prosperity, it may bring chaos to the world. P.S. The new book is not easy. I beg everyone to give me some flowers, tips, feedback, and comments. Thank you. Whenever there is a reward, it will explode at 10 tomorrow. Chapter 7. 20 years of listening to the tide in the dull sitting pavilion, without a national scholar. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. 20 years of listening to the tide pavilion in a dull sitting environment, national scholars strive for the world without a pair. The spring and autumn war has ended, and the Zhao family of Dali has granted the world a great fief. As the gateway to the northwest of the Central Plains, Xiliang should guard against the invasion of the northern nomadic ethnic group Beimang. Therefore, the feudal lords of Xiliang must be extremely powerful in order to resist the northern barbarians. Dali selected 2 candidates, Gu Jiantang and Su Xiao. But when we go to the northwest, the sky is high and birds fly freely, it is inevitable that mercenaries will become arrogant and even rebel against Dali. After careful consideration, Dali ultimately chose Su Xiao. The reason is also very simple. The court of Liang concluded that the possibility of Gu Jiantang rebelling in the future is much greater than that of Su Xiao. Su Xiao entered the western Liang as a result, and Gu Jiantang stayed behind in the capital. Fortunately, Li Yishan persuaded Su Shaoan not to cede power. In the Dali dynasty, there were also Gu Jiantang and Zhao's relatives who supported their troops and valued themselves. If Su Shao truly stood on his own, he might die without a place to bury himself. Seeing this, countless onlookers were amazed by Li Yishan's long-term vision, which indeed lasted longer than Zhao Chongling's. If we follow Zhao Chongling's plan, we believe the Su family army will only have one way to be destroyed. The picture gradually underwent changes. On the eve of Su Zhao's entry into the western Liang, in a separate courtyard in Tian City, the dim yellow candlelight flickered incessantly. Military strategist, must this be the case? In the screen of the Golden List, Su Shao and Li Yishan sit opposite each other, and Su Zhao's eyes seem to be hesitating. The previous massacre of Western Shu has already caused resentment among the people of Western Shu. If this continues. Li Yishan's voice came. This must be the case. This plan, hereinafter referred to as Hongjia's North Run. In order to ensure that the Grand Marshal can smoothly take over Xiliang, and also to prepare for the future. There is a long silence in the picture. After a long time, Su Zhao's voice came. Okay, as the military commander said, kill. The picture gradually dissipated and then condensed again. Su Shao released a message to slaughter all the scholars of Western Chu to vent his hatred. The national strength of the Western Chu was the strongest, and the Battle of the Western Wall was even more devastating for the Su family army. Upon hearing this news, a group of the remnants of Western Chu were all in panic. The news of the Su family's army slaughtering Western Shu spread throughout the world, and the scholars of Western Chu did not feel that what Su Shao said was false. Therefore, the aristocrats of Western Chu were panicked and wanted to escape from Guanling one after another. There is news again that Zhao Bing, the second most accomplished king of Yan, is threatening to kill the Tang people of Guangnan. Now, the entire Jiangnan was panicked, and countless noble families began to flee northward. I seem to have smelled some conspiracy in between. The Tang Empire, Tianxia looked at the scene on the gold list, with a faint expression in his eyes. As soon as Dali gained control of the world, various forces began to attack the south without hesitation. The reason behind this is intriguing. The aristocratic family has always been a major concern for the court. Wu Zhao naturally saw through the game of Dali at a glance, as if there was some invisible force driving the migration of southern aristocrats to the north. And the conspiracy between Su Shao and Li Yishan that just appeared on the gold list seems to have pointed all the spearheads at Li Yishan. If Li Yishan is plotting, why are all forces cooperating so well? Wu Zhao was puzzled in her heart, but on second thought, she suddenly understood that defeating the southern aristocrats was actually in the interests of all parties. The Liang Emperor planned to let Su Shao guard the northwest gateway of the Central Plains, and then arrange for people to guard the northeast, so as to block these southern scholars in the Central Plains. So, these scholars, in order to make a living, will definitely join the capital to seek fame and fortune. Nature can be used by Dali. Good strategy. It seems that there is also a cunning presence in the Dali court. Wu Zhao couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. If he could tie down all the scholars in the world, Dali could sit firmly in the world. But Su Shao and Li Yishan clearly did not intend to do so. On the way to the fiefdom, the Su family army walked incredibly slowly, and Su Shao wandered through the mountains and rivers all the way, missing out on the fiefdom for a long time. And those scholars from Western Chu, upon learning that their way north was sealed, turned to Western Liang and headed north into Beimang. As a result, Beimang was divided into a situation of dividing the north and south. In the southern dynasties, almost all high-ranking officials and officials were remnants of the spring and autumn period. Amazing, amazing. During the Ming dynasty, Liu Bowen, who had always been calm, couldn't help but burst out laughing and clapping at the moment. What is your opinion on the situation of the Dali dynasty, military strategist? Seeing Liu Bowen's loss of composure, Zhu Yuanzhang couldn't help but ask with interest. In this game of Dali, Yishan was the ultimate winner. This division of the northern barbarians gave birth to the southern dynasties, greatly alleviating the pressure on the western Liang and giving Su Xiao at least 10 years of development space. If Dali wants peace in the world, he must rely on the western Liang to guard the northern border. The educated northern Mang is even stronger, and Dali dare not vigorously rectify the feudal lords. He needs to rest and recuperate to prevent the northern Mang from invading. Yishan also planted many chess pieces in this group of people, which can be considered as a layout for future campaigns against the northern barbarians. Besides, Lu Bowen became more and more excited as he spoke, because he found that the current Ming dynasty could simply copy Yishan's style to deal with the northern Yuan dynasty. The true beneficiaries of this plan may be the inheritors of Xiliang, and even the entire Central Plains. When the scholar Nakahara entered the northern grasslands, he could naturally change the way of life of the nomadic tribes in the north, educate the barbarians, and ultimately assimilate them into the Central Plains. From then on, the north also became the land of the Central Plains. Regardless of which country unified the world in the future, all that was in sight was the Central Plains. Yishan, whose achievements are in contemporary times and whose benefits are in the future. He is truly unparalleled as a national scholar. Lu Bowen couldn't help but sigh. Upon hearing these words, Su De beside him also fell into deep thought. After a moment, he immediately knelt down on the ground and begged Zhu Yuanzhang, saying, "My superior, I will feel that I don't need to slaughter all the criminals and gentry of the Ming dynasty. I will also drive them to the barbarian land in the north. In less than 30 years, the northern Yuan will break free from attack." Upon hearing this, Zhu Yuanzhang couldn't help but fall into contemplation. If we really do this, although we can assimilate the northern Yuan, such a northern Yuan will also become even stronger. Doing so can be considered as establishing another opponent for Daming. If the Ming dynasty remains strong, then the northern Yuan dynasty could naturally become an imperial fence and even assimilate, but once the Ming dynasty declined, the north might take over. This is a considerable test for the successors of the Ming dynasty. In the picture, Yishan helped Su Xiao take over the western Liang without leaving home, yet he commented on the world. Evaluate the general and the rouge. After 2 evaluations, the entire Central Plains was amazed. From then on, Yishan seemed to have disappeared from the world, and the world no longer heard of the legend of this spring and autumn poison warrior. They all thought he was dead. However, what everyone didn't know was that this poisonous scholar of the spring and autumn period had been sitting in the Chao Pavilion for 20 years, exhausting himself for the northern Liang. Externally, Bei Liang confronted Bei Mang with 3 continents, but it made Bei Mang dare not act rashly. Internally and in charge of military and political affairs in Bei Liang, every detail is under control. The scene converges on the Tianxia Pavilion, where the old man with a withered face and withered white hair shows a pensive expression, facing the chessboard head on and playing against himself. P.S. Kneeling down for an automatic subscription and a reward, if there is one, the author will continue to explode with 30,000 words tomorrow. Chapter 8. The Haoran River in the Present World, Supplement the Palace Pill. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Haoran River in the Present World, Supplement the Palace Pill. It's easy to throw jade, but how difficult is it to repair jade? As the screen on the sword list disappeared, a row of inexplicable golden words leaped onto the gold list. Is this a criticism of the golden list against Yishan? Seeing these short 7 words, countless people in various parts of Kyushu were amazed. The person who replenishes jade, what an excellent evaluation is this. At this moment, the great Qin Empire. In Zhangtai Palace, Emperor Shi looked at the golden list and couldn't help but sigh, in times of chaos, we should use the important scriptures. Yishan was not wrong, and even contributed to the world of Dali. In the hall, Wei Liaozi, Li Si and others also nodded in recognition. Although they all came from the legalist school, they couldn't help but admire this seemingly malicious but righteous poison warrior Yishan. Yishan to the Western Liang is equivalent to Xianxia and Lord Wuan to the Great Qin. Yingxing couldn't help but sigh, with such a scholar, why should the Western Liang worry about not being prosperous? Dali Dynasty, Tian City. Zhao Chun's face had already turned pale as he saw the images appearing on the gold list. Teacher. Hongjia is heading north and I'm leaving the court, but I lost. Zhao Chun couldn't help but look at the solemn Yuanben Creek on the side. At this moment, the latter's face was already as heavy as water, and he looked at the golden list above the 9 heavens, his face unable to see the extreme. In this game, I really lost half of Yishan. Yuan Benshi struggled to say these words and couldn't help but sigh lightly. If this plan had not fallen to the bottom, there would have been no need to use dangerous tactics to plan for the white clothes case in the capital. I have to admit that losing to Yishan back then was the biggest mistake in his life for Yuan Benshi. Hongjia is heading north. If he can keep the southern scholars in the central plains, Dali will definitely have the strength to suppress the western Liang, and there is no need to worry about the power of the western Liang. But now, Dali can only watch helplessly as Xiliang grows bigger, but there is nothing he can do. Even allowing the royal family to marry the Su family was a last resort for Yuan Benshi, but for now, it seems that the Su family has no intention of accepting the offer. Yishan. I want to see how many more years you can live. Yuan Benshi sneered in his heart, saying that Yishan had already injured Tianxia by resorting to desperate tactics. Over the years, I have been putting in a lot of effort for the Su family and have already emptied my body. I'm sure Yishan hasn't had many years of good life either. Yuan Benshi was thinking about it, but once again, golden handwriting appeared on the 9 heavens. National scholars are unparalleled in their pursuit of the world, and without graves or monuments, it is Northern Liang. Ranked 10th on the golden list, poisonous scholar Yishan, golden list reward. Haoran River in the present world, Buke Pill. Accompanied by a few lines of golden text slowly emerging, in this moment, it seemed as if a vast and righteous energy was being moved between heaven and earth, surging out from above the 9 heavens. I saw a vast and righteous aura like a long river emerging from the clouds in the sky, majestic and vast. Among them, the interpretation of all sentient beings, emperors and generals, peddlers and soldiers, and all kinds of sentient beings are among them. At this moment, many people even saw themselves in it. How mysterious is this? It can even reflect the world. Vast world. In a thatched cottage, a somewhat disheveled old goat-bearded man looked towards the sky, as if feeling something in his heart, with a faint smile on his face. This old man is actually the literary sage and scholar. Yishan. I truly deserve to be a trailblazer in Confucianism. If you want to achieve this Buke Pill, I can also help you. The old scholar waved casually, and the vast literary energy flowed into the sky. The Ming Dynasty. In a remote rural area, a scholar studying hard through a cold window seemed to have a sense in his heart. He hurriedly stepped out of the thatched cottage and walked to the courtyard, thinking of the surging river on the horizon, bowing down and bowing. I am humble, and in the future, I am willing to devote myself wholeheartedly to this world and the people of the world, even if I die without regret. Standing on the highest of the heavens, at this moment, it has transformed into a wisp of Confucian and Taoist will, illuminating future generations. After seeing the appearance of Yishan on the golden list, that Supreme will also recognizes Yishan. The towering divine radiance surged, and a brilliant and boundless aura converged into the rolling and boundless river, heading towards the direction of Xiliang and rolling away. All the heavenly Confucian sages and their sons coincidentally infused their literary and noble spirit into the long river of Haoran, and then they all bowed and saluted towards the direction of the western Liang in Kyushu. Within the city of Liangzhou, the people gathered at the Sanwei bookstore at this moment were all shocked by the scene before them. The vast river that converges in the sky is like a waterfall pouring down from the 9 heavens, pouring into a certain part of the crowd. At this moment, an old soldier from Liang saw the figure bathed in the majestic aura, all of which moistened his eyes. Military strategist. Really a military strategist. Liang old soldier, pay respects to Mr. Li. Countless people in Liangzhou knelt down and bowed to Yishan, who was now like a fairy and had a terrifying aura. However, before fully kneeling down, everyone felt lifted up by a warm and incomparable force, as if basking in spring breeze. Throughout Kyushu, countless experts couldn't help but look towards the direction of Liang. The vast energy of the world gathers, helping Li Yishan become a saint in one day. Dali Donghai County, Woody City. An old man with white beard and hair stood steadfastly at the top of the city like an old pine tree. Looking at the golden chart in the sky, it projected onto Li Yishan on the streets of Liangzhou. Although it is the achievement of a Confucian sage. But unfortunately it is a pseudo-sage. Wang Xianji shook his head and became a saint with the help of external forces, but in the end, he was still slightly weaker. Today, Li Yishan still hasn't lived long, with a picture of oil burning out and paper withering away. Li Yishan planned for the world and gained recognition from the heavens, but unfortunately, he himself was only a mortal. Even if his heroic spirit was added, it was impossible for him to continue his life. It's just a name. Wang Xianji shook his head. If he were a true Confucian sage, he would be interested in fighting against him. Liangzhou City, in front of Sanwei Bookstore. The eloquence and grandeur of literature gradually dissipated, and at this moment, Li Yishan's eyes were a little more relieved. He planned his entire life, but was criticized for his many poisonous schemes. Now recognized by the Golden List, it can be said that there are no regrets in this life. Even if there is not much longevity, Li Yishan has no unfulfilled wishes. However, as the golden light dissipated, the tiny golden rays converged into a single point, transforming into a mysterious pill filled with divine light and fragrance, and fell into the hands of Li Yishan. Yuanying, is this the Buke pill? Su Xiao couldn't help but marvel at the xiandan in Li Yishan's hand. What is the function of this Buke pill? After all, it was bestowed by the Golden List, so I believe it must be extraordinary. Su Xiao couldn't help but ask, and at this moment, the hesitation in Li Yishan's eyes flickered and he quickly swallowed the Buke Dan. With just one breath of effort, a vibrant vitality rippled out of Li Yishan's body. The face that Li Yishan had suffered a disastrous defeat gradually regained its color, and at this moment, life and foundation were all replenished by the Buke pill. Immediately after, the towering literary spirit surged up, shaking the world of Kyushu and shocking everyone. A true Confucian sage has descended. P.S. The new book is not easy. I beg everyone to give me some flowers, tips, feedback, and comments. Thank you. Whenever there is a reward, it will explode at 10 tomorrow. Chapter 9. The art of dragon slaying is not empty. Educate everyone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The art of dragon slaying is not empty. Teach everyone, the way to break the situation. Does Li Yishan really have a chance to become a Confucian sage? Feeling the towering cultural energy emanating from the direction of Liangzhou, Wang Xianji's face showed a hint of unusual color. What exactly is the origin of this golden list? The Buke pill is so divine. At the level of Wang Xianji, Li Yishan's previous state naturally couldn't escape Wang Xianji's eyes. Oil runs out and the lamp withers, but there are still a few years of lifespan left. Unexpectedly, under the clothing of a Buke pill, there is truly the ability to change one's destiny against the heavens. Where does Li Yishan still have the pale complexion he had before? Looking at it, it is the peak of spring and autumn, as if it has just passed middle age. Unfortunately, the Golden List only lists the world's Confucianism and Taoism. Wang Xianji let out a sigh. The reward given by this gold medal list is that he, the pinnacle of Dali martial arts, couldn't help but be envious. Seeing the scene on the gold list, Yuan Benshi's face turned pale at this moment. Even his expression froze, and then he coughed violently. Heaven! Why is it unfair? Yuan Benshi glanced at the palm of his mouth that he had just covered, and now it was stained with a touch of crimson. Today, Yishan has been recognized by the sages of various heavens and has entered the realm of Confucian sages. You need to replenish the elixir and make up for all the days you owe before. Looking at Yishan's expression now, at least he can plan another year for the Su family. I'm afraid by then, his Yuan Benshi will be dead in the grave. Zhang Jiulu is quite adept at governing the country, and he has a plan. I'm afraid he won't be killed by Yishan's plan. Yuan Benshi couldn't help but sigh when he thought of the successor he had discovered. Yishan will not die, the Western Liang is difficult to settle, and the world is difficult to secure. Good. Yishan is unparalleled among scholars, and he deserves the title of Confucian sage. He deserves this reward as well. In the Tang Empire, Zhao couldn't help but admire. Although Yishan's tactics are all desperate, they all benefit the future. Now that Yishan has been able to extend his life, the empress cannot help but applaud. The Tang dynasty was in a stable and prosperous era, and it had been many years since I saw such a situation where all the advisors came out and the world was in conflict. Although Yishan was not suitable for the current Tang dynasty, the empress greatly appreciated him. If it falls early, I cannot help but feel regret in my heart. If there were no Yishan in the world of Dali, perhaps there would be many wonderful things to be missed. The Great Qin Empire, Zhangtai Palace. Seeing Yishan, who was full of Confucian aura, Emperor Shi was so shocked that he stood up directly. However, what surprised Zheng was not the emergence of a generation of Confucian sages, but the reward of the golden list, the Buke pill. Living dead, healing bones. Changing fate against the heavens. Isn't this the elixir of immortality that I am looking for? The energy of heaven and earth is vast, and the righteous energy gathers in the Western Liang. The Milky Way hangs down and flows towards the sky. As if all of this is to witness the birth of the Confucian sage. However, at this moment, Yishan was dressed in a Confucian robe and acted naturally without wind. A body full of majestic and righteous energy that is ravaged immensely, truly like a saint approaching the mortal world. The faint fluorescence was introverted, and Yishan's smile was gentle. Just a glance made people feel like they were basking in spring breeze. Master. Sun Yan looked at Yishan from a distance, surrounded by the crowd. He seemed to feel that Yishan's aura had changed, no longer the same as before when the oil was depleted and the lamp was dry. Su Xiao beside him was laughing uncontrollably at the moment. After the death of Zhao Chongling, all military and political affairs in the Western Liang dynasty will ask Yishan for advice. Watching Yishan's body decline helplessly, Su Xiao had a lot of guilt in his heart. Now that Yishan Avenue has been completed, with no worries about his life and the ability to plan for decades for Xiliang, how can Su Xiao not be happy? At this moment, Yishan, who had gradually regained his senses from the mysterious and infinite aura, couldn't help but look towards the direction of Sanwei Bookstore. Standing in front of Sanwei Bookstore, Yishan bowed to Su Yan. Mr. Su, I have learned a lot from the skills of slaughtering dragons that my previous teacher taught me. Today, students still have an unsolved question. Su Yan smiled and nodded at the words, gesturing for Yishan to continue speaking. A dynasty rose, and the founders shattered the nobles and warlords of the previous dynasty, establishing a new dynasty on the ruins. The new order was established, and the old order was broken. At the beginning of the establishment of the country, it may have been possible to appoint people based on merit as the gentleman said, but 100 years later, new aristocratic sects emerged, and the imperial dynasty was inevitably not controlled by them. Excuse me, sir, is there a solution? Upon hearing this, many knowledgeable individuals present showed signs of contemplation. Yishan's words are true. Su Yan's depiction is indeed an ideal world of universal harmony, but the rise and fall of dynasties are like a cycle. Throughout history, the imperial dynasties of the world have never escaped from it. If there is no way out, what Su Yan said is just a castle in the air. Su Yan shook his head slightly and asked, I dare to ask the nobles, what are the people of all the scholars, peasants, and merchants in the world? Yishan seemed to have thought of something and quickly spoke up, naturally, they are farmers who work hard. There are the most farmers in the world, but the least educated, and the most educated. If everyone in the world educates, then educates everyone. If everyone chooses to be virtuous and no longer respects bloodline, how can it be repeated? This. Upon hearing these words, the group of knowledgeable people present pondered for a moment and felt that Su Yan's words were good. However, it was not easy to educate the world. At this moment, even Su Xiao was lost in deep thought on the side. For him, power is just bullshit. If we can truly establish the magnificent world depicted by Su Yan, it doesn't matter whether he is the king of Western Liang or not. The throne of the king of Western Liang can also be held by a virtuous person. If the world were to follow Su Zi's words, it would probably be a bit difficult. But if we were to use the land of the 3 states of Western Liang for education, it would not be impossible. Su Xiao pinched his chin and couldn't help but murmur in his heart. Although he despised those sour scholars who could only guide the country the most in his life, Su Xiao had to admit that reading was really useful. If this matter can be achieved, wouldn't my talent in Xiliang be several times or even dozens of times that of other families? Su Xiao understands the principle of casting a wide net and catching more fish. If what Su Yan said is true, the Western Liang in the future will become quite terrifying. Thinking of this, Su Xiao's expression towards Su Yan also became fiery. What is this Nima? Amazing talent. If he could be brought under the command of Xiliang, even if Su Xiao died suddenly today, he could be trusted to hand over Xiliang to Sun Yan. Thinking of this, Su Xiao naturally had an impulse to recruit Su Bai. Just what made Su Xiao uneasy was, could Su Zi take a liking to this grassroots soldier and ruffian? Just as Su Xiao was feeling uneasy in his heart, there was once again a change on the gold list. Golden words slowly emerge, and the divine light surges forth. Jiuzhou Confucian Saint List, 9th, Confucian Saint Xianyuan Jingcheng. Subordinate forces. Dali Huishan Xianyuan aristocratic family. As soon as this line appeared, the entire Kyushu was once again shaken. Number 9 on the gold list, it has appeared. P.S. The new book is not easy. I beg everyone to give me some flowers, tips, feedback, and comments. Thank you. Whenever there is a reward, it will explode at 10 tomorrow.